This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report. So the drought will devastate this area's economy. Maybe not. Okay, the benefits of living in the city outweigh those of living on the farm. Maybe not. Fine. The mighty oak from a tiny acorn grow. That and much more for certain next on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Well, school is back in session and it's nice to see the campus springing back to life. Let's hope the school year is better than the growing year. I've talked to several of our farming friends and a bunch of them are already harvesting corn. Todd Easton told me that it was, quote, a very pathetic corn crop. I hope to be able to talk to him again next week when he has a better idea of just how it all went. For weeks now, I've been wondering what sort of economic effect the drought was going to have on our area and the nation. So I asked Chris Langan to look into it, and you might be surprised what he found out. With me now is Chris Langan from the Eastern Illinois University Geography Department. And Chris, I brought you here because you deal a lot with the rural economy. And I was wondering, what do you think are going to be some of the effects of the drought on the economy as a whole?
On the economy as a whole, probably not as much as what has been kind of talked about in the news. There will definitely be local and in some parts of the United States some more severe regional types of consequences, but I really don't see a large-scale national issue coming from this drought in terms of prices for food and so on.
Why do you think that? I mean, what are some of the things you're looking at?
Well, a lot of what's been talked about in the news lately has been increases in food prices and increases in fuel prices based on that ethanol component of fuel. Each year, you know, when we talk about food prices going up, a lot of the focus has been on what types of foods are going to go up, and mostly we tend to think about meat products, which use things like corn to help fatten up the animal, as well as all the other myriad types of foods that we see in a grocery store that have corn as some component of them.
Like chips.
Exactly, you know, corn chips, bread, whatever it might be, soft drinks and so on. We will see some increases in prices. From some of the data I've seen, maybe only upwards of 1/2 to maybe 1%.
Okay, which would work out to what, do you think?
Some of the estimates I've seen for an annual type of family of four food budget.
Okay, for the whole year.
Yeah, maybe $400 to $500 extra a year,
okay,
which is $10 a week plus or minus, you know, and should be pretty, I don't want to say easy to come up with that difference, but not undoable.
So I'll have to give up my manicure and pedicure.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Well, right. Now, the drought's affected more than just the farmers. The Mississippi River is dropped to the level that they're not being able to move barge traffic as quickly as possible.
And not at all in certain places,
right?
No, just north of Memphis.
So I mean, there's other effects of this drought.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our grain does move down the Mississippi to the export markets through the Gulf of Mexico. So yeah, definitely every aspect of our agricultural productive capacity this year will be affected. But you know, agriculture is a huge business in the United States, and you know, we're part of this globalized agricultural system now. So while there will be some declines in the amount of grain that we're able to export, much of that will be made up by other export markets. Brazil, namely Argentina, and even Russia is starting to increase their agricultural output.
This isn't a question we talked about before, but I'll ask you this. Given the global nature of agriculture, have we seen a drought situation, an interruption of supply elsewhere in the world? And
not to the extent that we've seen it here in the United States this year. So no.
Okay. So is this the effects of the drought? Are we going to feel them most locally or nationally?
I think Again, I think it'll depend both what region of the country you're in. Some of the cattle farmers who have been battling drought now for the last couple of years, who have had to liquidate their cattle herds, definitely are going to be probably the ones hurting the most. When it comes to here around Coles County, You know, I think Illinois on average we're dropping down from about 160 bushel corn down to the 115, 16 area. So definitely local grain elevators will probably be looking at a reduced number of employees come harvest time. I know one of the local grain elevators here north of Mattoon normally hires 3 to 4 extra part-time workers in the fall to help with harvest. This year they're only going to maybe have to hire 1.
Okay.
So there will be some smaller scale local impacts, but
it's going to hurt some people very much personally,
yes.
But us as a community, not as much.
Not so much.
Okay.
You know, we're only looking at just over 1% of our Coles County population are farmers. So.
Okay. So going back, is that pain been minimized by crop insurance?
Yes, yes. To a certain extent, it's been minimized by crop insurance, and also just the fact that farming is such a big business these days, that those who are good at it have built that type of flexibility to deal with a year like this into their system.
So it's been managed if they've managed correctly.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I've read some predictions that this drought isn't just a one-off, that it may be part of a changing weather pattern. If, in fact, it is, and we're not saying it is, we're saying, but if, in fact, it is, does that change the game?
To the extent that we here in central Illinois will change what we farm and how we farm
and how we mark, you know.
It probably won't change too much because the farmers that are here have been doing corn and soybean farming for a long time, and that's likely what they'll continue to be doing. What will probably change is we'll hopefully start to see some more drought-tolerant types of crop varieties come around. There are some already, some that maybe handle various types of stresses in different ways. Those types of things are always being developed and improved upon. So that would be, in my mind, the direction that we would go.
So we shouldn't be Chicken Little. The sky is not falling. The sky is not falling. The sky is not falling.
Not in my opinion, no.
Okay.
No.
So Chris, thank you so much for coming here, and thanks for giving us a little bit of ray of sunshine in otherwise dreary summer.
All right, thanks.
With the latest USDA numbers and a great excuse to send the kids outside, here's Monica Becker with the latest agricultural news. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. I'm Monica Becker. The USDA numbers for the week are in, and it appears that corn is rounding the bend and heading for the final straightaway. Corn statewide is reported at 80% dented and 25% matured, as compared to the 5-year average of 39% dented and 4% matured. Locally, we are only slightly ahead of the state average at 84% dented and 34% mature. Soybeans were enjoying the recent rain and still setting pods. The USDA reports that 94% of beans are setting pods and only 7% turning yellow. However, here we are ahead of the state average with 90% setting pods and 11% turning yellow. The moisture picture has improved. Really? Topsoil in our area is rated at 88% very short or short and 12% adequate. But that moisture hasn't traveled too far down. Subsoil moisture is rated at 99% very short and only 1% adequate. So despite the rain, we're still in a drought, and the rest of the country is beginning to pay attention. President Obama and Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack were in Iowa last week and toured Iowa, visiting several farms and the effects of the drought on the crops there. Here, the president announced the USDA's purchase of meat and fish to help farmers.
The Department of Agriculture announced that it will buy up to $100 million worth of pork products, $50 million worth of chicken, and $20 million worth of lamb and farm-raised catfish. Understand, this won't solve the problem. We can't make it rain, but this will help families like the McIntoshes in states across the country, including here in Iowa.
And they will need the help. The USDA chief economist says that the drought is hanging on and getting worse.
The drought certainly hasn't abated, and I think that's the main message. You know, the last few weeks we've been at pretty much close to 90% of the corn soybean crop in areas hit by drought. In some areas we have had a little bit of rain, but the drought, particularly in the corn belt areas, has actually intensified. Now looking at a midpoint for the corn number of $8.20 a bushel, for soybeans $16 a bushel. Those are both records, and again, reflecting the price jumps that we've seen in the markets over the last 2 months or so, and I mean, obviously, just the short supply situation that we're facing.
Glauber says corn and soybean prices are skyrocketing as the drought limits supply of those crops. But what does that mean to you? The agricultural economists at U of I have run the short crop predicted by the USDA, and Todd Gleason reports their results.
USDA projects this year's average national corn yield will be more than 40 bushels to the acre short of trend. The price of corn in Chicago, apparently, is high enough to ration out that supply, but should the numbers change, well, then maybe not. Here are 3 alternate price scenarios for cash corn as developed by Illinois' Darrell Good and Scott Irwin. Rather than a USDA projected 123.4 bushels to the acre, say the yield's 128. The average farm price for corn would drop 15 cents a bushel from USDA's August $8.20 projection. If it's a 120 crop, then cash prices might average $9, and at 115 bushels to the acre, $9.60. You might think that those higher prices would curb demand for ethanol, but maybe not, says Scott Irwin.
The answer is not necessarily. That given current demand for ethanol specifically as an octane enhancer for blending into our gasoline supply, that even if you waive the mandate, it's theoretically possible that nothing will change.
Here's the thing about Illinois' projections. They all have corn used to make ethanol projected at a higher level than USDA's August estimate. It has little to do with the congressional mandates for biofuels in the U.S., even if they were rolled back, and everything to do with the economics of blending gasoline.
My personal view is so long as the blending economics continue to be favorable, if we had a big crop or a small crop, won't make much difference, because it's driven by the incentives that gasoline producers have to use ethanol, not how big the corn crop is or how much the most recent rate of ethanol production is.
The driving factor is not the size of the U.S. corn crop, it is demand for ethanol as an oxygenate, say the ag economist. That demand won't change until oil refiners find a cheaper oxygenate substitute. For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason.
This year could drive a farmer to say the heck with this. And if so, the farmer might not be disappointed with the price their land could land. The National Agriculture Statistics Service just released estimated average farm real estate values state by state. And despite all the bad news this year, the average value of Illinois farmland is up by 17.5%. Last year, the average acre of farmland was $5,700. This year, $6,700 per acre. Since 2000, Illinois farm real estate values have increased 196%. Illinois health agencies are warning of a couple of potential health issues. First, the Illinois Department of Public Health is warning of an outbreak of salmonella linked to cantaloupes grown on one farm in southwestern Indiana. So far, a total of 141 people in 20 states have been infected, and Illinois reports 17 cases with 8 people having to be hospitalized. Now, how about that warm glass of milk you're preparing to help you relax from all this bad news? The IDPH will resume testing raw milk for aflatoxin next month because of possible contaminated grain due to, you guessed it, the drought. Currently, the plan is to test raw milk 4 times in the next 6 months at each processing plant, but that may change if the situation warrants. But there is some good news to end the newscast on. A study in the New England Journal of Medicine reports what we've suspected for a long time. Farm kids are generally healthier than city kids. School-age children who lived on farms were 30 to 50% less likely to have asthma than farm children who lived nearby. It's all that exercise, hard work, and fresh air, right? Not quite. The report goes on to report that the benefits may be of more microscopic nature. The report suggests that exposure to bacteria and fungi from environmental sources like dirt and animal hair early in life protects against asthma and allergies by helping the immune system develop normally. Researchers are looking for the specific bacteria or fungi that helps combat asthma. But for now, the best thing you might be able to do for your child is send them outside to play. It might also help calm your nerves. That's all for this week. I'm Monica Becker.
Last year, an Alabama football fan poisoned the landmark oak trees at Toomer's Corner at Auburn University. The trees were located in a beloved gathering spot on campus, and the scientists and arborists tried everything they could to save the trees. It doesn't look good for the oaks. Well, locally, we have our own long-standing and beloved oak tree. The old Maine oak has been standing over that corner for 200 years, but its end may be near. I talked to someone who's hoping to save the legacy, if not the tree. With me now is Dr. Henry Owen of the Biological Science Department at Eastern Illinois University. And Dr. Owen is on a mission of mercy to save a patient who happens to be right behind us, the oak tree by Old Maine. Dr. Owen, what happened to this tree? And first of all, tell us a little bit about it and what happened to that tree.
Well, the Old Maine oak predates Old Maine, and it's at least 200 years old,
Wow.
if not older. And it was hit by lightning a few years ago and damaged the east side of the tree, as you can see. And so it's been declining ever since, and they've had to have a couple of significant prunings to it, and it is in its declining stage at this point.
So have they taken any steps to try and propagate it, save it in some ways?
Last fall they collected some acorns from it and got several of those to germinate. I think they have, last I heard, 31 of them.
Okay, so the tree, the lineage is safe, but you are thinking about trying to do something different. What are you trying to do?
Well, when I heard that they were propagating it as seedlings, I thought, well, this might be a good opportunity to try and actually clone it, to get a genetic copy of it.
Okay, so we have our own Shirley the sheep, or whatever her name was.
Dolly.
Dolly, yes, okay. So we might have our own Dolly the tree here.
In a sense, yes.
Yeah. So what's the process you're thinking about doing to create this clone?
Well, my area of expertise is plant, cell, and tissue culture. And tissue culture propagation has been accomplished in a large number of species. But what I can see from the literature, it's not been done with this particular species.
Okay.
It's been done with some other oak species, but not Quercus macrocarpa, which is the one that we have.
So what would be the steps that you're thinking about to get a tissue growth from part of the tree?
Well, there are a couple of things we're going to try. We're going to take leaf sections as well as axillary buds and try and surface disinfest them, get them contamination free.
Okay, good luck with that.
And yeah, that's going to be a challenge.
Okay.
And once we can get some clean cultures in vitro in the lab, in glass, then we need to manipulate the environment of the culture media to get them to produce shoots and then roots and get an actual vegetative clone of the original.
So this would be an identical clone of that tree.
It would be genetically identical.
Okay, which is very, very cool. What do you see as some of the problems to get that clone done? First of all, it's never been done before.
Well, there is some literature out there on regeneration in other oak species.
Okay.
So I'm optimistic that we can find something that'll work with this species. But as I mentioned, we need to clean the contaminants off of the plant parts that we put in culture.
Yeah.
And that, since it is a very old tree and dry bark, it harbors a lot of critters to it. So we need to get it cleaned up first and then put it in tissue culture and stimulate. Usually shoots first and then root those and then work them out to a greenhouse situation and then finally back out.
So you're starting the research now and you're looking for for students to help you out with the project. What do you see, do you have a timetable? Do you just have a goal, short-term goals in mind?
Well, the plan is, I'm right now advertising for students that are interested in it. I have a few students that have voiced some interest, so I'll be speaking with them today. And I'd like to pick a couple of students because we can separate out the way I have it planned into kind of two major areas. And so the students could take lead control of one aspect of it and the other student the other aspect of it, but still have them work together with me in the lab to learn all of the techniques.
Okay. So if you get a clone of the old main oak, do you believe it's going to be planted someplace on campus to replace this oak? Or maybe not in this location, but
that's the long-term goal. If we are successful with it, I would like to see at least one specimen somewhere on campus. It might not be exactly at this location, but somewhere on campus that would be nice, and then be able to have a little plaque that describes how it came into being.
Well, I hope this campus tradition lasts longer than riding the Panther. So, okay, thank you very much, Dr. Owen.
You're very welcome.
Like looking at your prom pictures and see that horrible blue tux you wore all over again, some memories should not be cherished or reviewed. But as my longtime friend and mentor Bill Helms used to say, there's no such thing as bad experience. You can have a miserable time, but the experience will always teach you something. Thanks, Bill. So here to look at the month of July and remind us of that experience is Cameron Craig with Under the Four Rivers Sky.
What can we say about the summer of 2012? Two things popped to mind very quickly: hot and definitely dry. The corn crop shriveled up and died. The extremely hot temperatures this season only compounded the problem by drying up what moisture was available. Not only did the farmers suffer, but many residents throughout central Illinois were restricted from using water for daily activities. Yes, this summer will definitely go down in the history books as one of the worst droughts on record. Let's do the numbers. For the year, the total precipitation to date is 15.34 inches, which is 12.05 inches below the 30-year average of 27.39 inches. June received only 93/100ths of an inch of rain, which was 3.01 inches below normal. In July, we only received 0.08 of an inch of rain that broke the driest July on record since 1947 with 0.29 inches. Since the 1st of August, we have experienced several periodic rainfalls that total 2.30 inches. These rainfall events have helped to green up grass and weeds, but the drought persists. The average temperature in June was 74.1 degrees, 1.4 degrees above the 30-year normal. The first half of June, the daytime highs remained between 71 degrees on the 1st of June to 89 degrees. Then, the daytime highs peaked in the low 90s from the 16th of June through the rest of the month, with June 28th and 29th hitting 105 degrees and 103 degrees. July had an average temperature of 84.4 degrees, which was 7.7 degrees above the 30-year average of 76.7 degrees. This July was 0.3 of a degree below the warmest July set back in 1936. All of July except one day had daytime highs above 90 degrees. The only day, July 14th, had a daytime high of 89 degrees. Between June and July, there were 42 days when the daytime high was above 90 degrees, and 14 days when the daytime high hit above 100 degrees. The warmest day of the 2 months was on June 28th with 105 degrees. The culprit responsible for the drought conditions through June and July was the position of the jet stream. The ridge of the jet stream was positioned north of the Great Plains, allowing the northern Great Lakes region to receive the much-needed precipitation. Hot, dry air continued to flow into the Great Plains and Midwest throughout the 2-month period. At the start of August, the eastern trough of the jet stream began to sink to the south and west, allowing much cooler air and periodic rain showers to help the drought situation. In fact, the lowest daytime high in August was on the 13th with 77 degrees. The last day we saw temperatures that low was on June 6th. Although the current drought situation for central Illinois is extreme, it is improving throughout the state. The recent precipitation events and somewhat cooler conditions have allowed the drought edges to shrink. However, the drought will continue to persist until we can receive adequate amounts of precipitation that are periodic throughout the rest of the year. Current outlooks indicate the drought persisting but improving through November.
The drought has been hard on all of us, But for some people living in Indiana, it's allowed them to revisit their childhoods. The drought has lowered the water levels in the Salamani River in northeastern Indiana so much that a town that was intentionally submerged decades ago is starting to surface. The town, Monument City. The town was so small, with only about 100 residents, that everyone was relocated in order to dam the Salamani to make Lake Salamani. Now, water levels have dropped so far that the foundations and bricks from many of the buildings of the town are now showing up. So for some of the former residents of Monument City, you can go home again, so long as you don't mind getting your shoes wet. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be especially safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.